Hello, everybody. Good morning and welcome to the United Stands. I'm Mark Goldbridge. This is your latest Manchester United news. And what is it about the international break and big news around Manchester United? Because I tell you what, Manchester United may be about to get new investment / ownership. I mean, last night it was all going off about Sir Jim Ratcliffe's comments and the ownership of Manchester United and all this stuff. And here we have this morning stories coming in, and I'll read it out. I mean, it's coming in from Turki Al-Sheikh, who is massively involved in sport in Saudi. He's been involved in the boxing, the snooker, gets involved in football as well. This is what he put out and caused an absolute stir with last night. The best news on his Twitter account with 7 million followers. The best news I heard today is that Manchester United is in an advanced stage of completing a deal to sell to a new investor. I hope he's better than the previous owners. So this came out about 8 hours ago. The best news I heard today is that Manchester United now in an advanced stage of completing a deal to sell to a new investor. I hope he's better than the previous owner. We've got a little bit of a poll going on here saying, do you want Saudi investment? 92% saying yes, 8% saying no. I'm somewhat confused. I am somewhat confused because last night I read your comments and I knew my opinions were not popular and I knew my opinions were in the minority, and I'm never scared of doing that. So, let the comments flow. But all I read last night on last night's video was, I back Sir Jim Ratcliffe, giving a manager 3 years is what we want. Sir Jim's right, credit where it's due. And then I wake up this morning and there's prospect of Saudi investment and people are saying, I want that. And I'm somewhat confused by what people actually want, because I ain't going to apologise for what I said last night about Sir Jim Ratcliffe and his quotes. I don't believe him. I think he's a bad owner. I don't like this ownership. I never have. I don't like the Glazers. My conscience is clear. I don't flip-flop. I don't like this ownership. So if there's a prospect of them leaving and new ownership coming in, yes, please. I've always been very consistent to that. But I'm a little bit confused as to why people were 12 hours ago right up the arse of Sir Jim Ratcliffe saying it's a great idea to keep a manager for 3 years and take our time rebuilding the football club. And then 12 hours later, there's the prospect of us being sold and everyone's going, yeah, let's do it. Which shows me exactly what I've always thought. We've got a very flip-flop fan base. And also, they don't really like this ownership. They're just desperate for success and they want to believe whatever crap comes out of this football club day to day, because it's not, none of it can be trusted. Do I think this is true? Look, all I'm going to say is 2 o'clock today, Ben Jacobs. I'm not going to miss it. It's going to be a cracking show, because when it comes to ownership strategy, ownership stories, I think Ben Jacobs arguably is one of the best. I think Mike Keegan's been very good around it as well. I don't really think this is Romano and Ornstein's forte. I think they're good at transfers. I think Ben Jacobs has been brilliant around the ownership from day one. And I've already sort of had a chat with Ben this morning. I'm not going to reveal anything that he said to me, but, the 2 o'clock show is going to be very, very interesting. What I would say is Turki Al-Sheikh also very, very credible in football, very, very credible in sport, and a massive part of the, sort of UK Saudi sport acquisition scene. He did also post a picture of Mo Salah in an Al Hilal kit, and Mo Salah still plays for Liverpool. So I don't think that we definitely need to believe this. And also his comment is very antagonistic. It's sort of like, great news, I'm hearing about sale investments into Man United. Hopefully they can do better than the previous owners. That doesn't read to me like it's somebody that's involved in it. It sounds like he's heard something. I think there's more to this. What I would say is, a lot of people are saying it's a load of crap, this, that, and the other. It's not in the Sun. It's not in the Sun. It's not in the Daily Star. It's not some crappy source. Like, it is somebody that is massively involved in the UK Saudi sports scene. And with that reputation, he doesn't need to sit there on Twitter going, I'm going to wind up, the football world. He doesn't need to do that, because it damages the credibility he's built in other sports and football. He doesn't need to do that. So I would acknowledge it and say that as much as we're probably all a bit reticent to believe it, I would say that there's not really a hell of a lot of reason why he would post, I've heard that Man United is now in an advanced state. And look, go back over the comment. I've heard today that Man United is in an advanced stage of completing a deal to sell to a new investor. I hope he's better than the previous owners. He's either going to, you know, banter himself to millions and millions and millions and millions and millions of sport fans, or something's going on. And I don't understand why somebody of his reputation needs to act like Indicalia. I don't understand why he needs to behave like the Sun. I don't understand how he needs to act on social media like an ITK. And he doesn't need to do that. He does not need to do that. He's involved in boxing, football, darts, snooker, you know, the lot. He does not need to do that. So hopefully there is something going on. We can all speculate what it is, and I have a theory, but I just don't. That's not the sort of thing that you can, you know, you could say it about Forest, you could say it about Everton, and you'd be fine. But you say that about Man United and WWE as well. Ryan says Turkey likes to stay relevant, though. I understand that, but there's ways to stay relevant. Like, you know, I could say something today that could go really viral, but tomorrow I'd be discredited. Like, you know, and it's not worth it if you're somebody of his reputation. And as I said, you could say it about a smaller sport or a smaller club, but when you say that about Man United and nothing happens, it makes you just look really, you lose credibility. And I don't see why you would do that. So look, hopefully there's something going on. I understand the irony, and I find it quite funny. I've been talking to a few people this morning. Oh, if we get time later on, I actually have the Christmas jumper prototype, and it's in my hands below screen at the moment. And I might just, you might have seen a little bit of a glimpse there. You might get a little bit of it's the best one we've ever done. It's the most excited I am. But look, in relation to if Manchester United, look, what I find funny about this is that when we had the whole guitar Sir Jim Radcliffe thing, there was a lot of people that were pro Sir Jim simply because he was British. We don't want state ownership. We don't want ownership from the Middle East. We don't want that. We want Sir Jim. A lot of people just did it for that, you know, whatever you want to call that. It was just, he's British. We don't want state ownership, la, la, la. And it would, how funny it would be if Sir Jim Ratcliffe and the Glazers went and got money from, you know, what is effectively the Middle East. It would be quite funny. Apparently we've got something coming in from Mike Keegan, who, as I said, when it comes to this sort of thing, Mike Keegan, Ben Jacobs would be the two that I would take most notice of. Last night's claims on Man United are interesting. This piece explains how the club crept back onto the market in August. So Mike, look, my big takeaway this morning, right? I've spoken to Ben Jacobs. I'm not revealing anything he said to me because it's his information and he's on the show at 2:00. So I'm not going to do that, but he will talk about it at 2:00. What I will say is Ben Jacobs, Mike Keegan, Fabrizio Romano, David Ornstein, The Athletic, the Manchester Evening News, they've had this information for 8 hours and nobody's discounted it. Now, that doesn't mean it's not going to get discounted while we're live, but come on, it's 8 hours. They're journalists. If it was a load of crap, we'd know about it. And that's all I'm going to say. While there's no news, it's good news. Because if this was a load of crap, you'd kill it dead. And I think a lot of people are reacting to it the same way as we are. This guy is a significant player in the transformation of sport. Saudi, money, sport. He's a big player. When he says something like that, you want to discount it as quick as possible, and they can't discount it at the moment. So something is going on. People will be asking questions, of course they will, and we probably will get the truth. And to be honest with you, I would imagine Man United will put a statement out to the journalists saying nothing is going on at the moment. But it doesn't mean it's not, because if I'm trying to sell my car and people are interested, but I don't want everybody to know, I'm going to say my car's not for sale. So look, it's intriguing. I've seen a few theories as to what could be going on. And a few people are saying maybe it's just investment because we're looking to play games in Saudi. Maybe there's conversations about funding the stadium. Maybe there's, conversations about, taking 10% in the club. All these things are really, really interesting. And all these things are possible. Do I think we're about to see a total change of ownership? I mean, that would be the dream. That was the dream I had 2 years ago. I mean, I would literally run around my garden in my pants, as much as people won't want to see that. In any weather, I would love to see Man United change ownership, remove the Glazers, remove the debt, and have people come in like a Todd Bowley or whoever who just is obsessed with winning football games. That's what I was talking about last night, which some people didn't seem to understand. That's my dream. I would love to see that. I don't think I'm going to see that. I don't think I'm going to see that. I think what we might see is some sort of investor coming in for the stadium to own that, which would be strange. I don't even know how that works, because if you bring a third party in to build the stadium, they're in the stadium, we don't own the stadium, so where's all this money coming in? I don't know. I mean, look, maybe somebody could give us a load of money to build the stadium, and then they make the money back off the stadium, so we don't own the stadium. I think there'd be protests about that, so it doesn't make sense. Maybe it's sell 10% to get somebody to come in to invest in the club, but whichever way it is, it doesn't make sense to just sell the stadium because you don't get the revenue. It's a short-term fix. It doesn't make sense to bring a third party in and give them 20% and dilute the Glazers even more, because then you've got 3 fingers in the pie. I hope something's happening. I really hope something's happening, because I think whatever it is, it doesn't make sense to do for the Glazers and Sir Jim Ratcliffe unless there is a longer term plan to make a big change. So I hope something's going on, but as you know, I think we've been down this road before. I can't think of anything that involves the word sale or investment that wouldn't be quite disruptive to our future and wouldn't be a foot in the door for somebody to maybe take us over. But look, I hope the club's on its arse. I hope it's really broke, and I hope Ineos and the Glazers are going, we need to sell. That to me would be a dream. I don't know. But it's hot on the heels of a conversation about a manager staying for 3 years, isn't it? So, you know, you sort of sit there and you go, what's going on? And I'm sure in the fullness of time, we will find out. But as I said before, and, you know, I don't think Ben will mind me reminding you of this when we were talking this morning. He did say, look, Turki Al-Sheikh's got a great reputation, but he did post a picture of Mo Salah in an Al Hilal kit, and Mo Salah is at Liverpool. So it's not like he can't be wrong, but also I don't agree that he would make something up. So there must be something going on. And look, it's a huge positive. As I say, we've got a poll going on here. Do you want Saudi investment? 91% say yes, and 9% say no. Last night, we've got 85% agreeing with Sir Jim Ratcliffe and 15% not. So I don't understand. All we can do is the shows and give our opinions, but I just don't understand. Last night, the comments are full backing Sir Jim Ratcliffe, saying, you know, give him a chance, he's a good bloke. And then this morning, it's like, get out my club. I can't get my head around what people actually want and think about this football club. What I want is what I wanted 2 years ago. I want the Glazers gone. I want the debt gone. I think anybody that got into bed with the Glazers is an enemy of the club. Therefore, so Sir Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos are. I want a proper ownership of this football club with people in charge who aren't interested in business. They're interested in winning. For me, a football club is not a business. It is a toy. It is a project. It is a plaything. It is, you know, a vanity project, whatever you want to call it. People who own football clubs shouldn't own football clubs to make money out of them. They should own football clubs to make them win. It's an entertainment sport, and that's what I want. And whoever that is, that's what I want the goal to be. Whether that's, you know, Middle Eastern investment, American investment, British investment, you know, I don't care who it is. I just want somebody to own the football club who cares about the football club and wants it to win. Because if I was in charge of the football club, or you were in charge of the football club, I wouldn't be buying Man United thinking I want to make money out of it. I'd be buying Man United because I can afford it and I want it to go back to the top. And that would be the only motto. And that's all I want. But look, you know what? As I said at the start, you know, Turki Al-Sheikh works closely with the. Let me just get this information, because I don't want to be wrong on this, but I did write it down. So let me just. Oh God, I'm so slow when it comes to this sort of stuff. Like, so we go. So Turki Al-Sheikh is the person who just broke the news about the possible sale of Man United. He's an advisor to the Royal Court of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. Cristiano Ronaldo has shared this year with him. He's also the current owner of Almeria, a team in the Spanish second division. So look, he's got credibility. He's got, 7 million followers, etc. It doesn't necessarily mean, I just want to just go back to his actual statement though, because it doesn't actually necessarily mean that he's the best news I heard today is that Man United is now in an advanced stage of completing a deal to sell to a new investor. I hope he's better than the previous owners. That doesn't necessarily mean it's Saudi, by the way. When you read that, the best news I heard today is that Man United is now in an advanced stage of completing a deal to sell to a new investor. I hope he's better than the previous owners. If he works very, very closely with the Saudi investment group, why would he hear about that? Why would he talk about that in the third person in something that he'd be involved in? So it doesn't necessarily mean it's Saudi. It doesn't necessarily mean it's that. But let me just grab some of your points, because we've got some actual football news to talk about this morning. The 9% want a takeover, not an investment, says Ray Simpson. I'd rather Saudi and Jim than Glazers and Jim, says Ray. All I ask is that everyone keeps an open mind about what this can be. We cannot afford to fall behind, says Keel. Could the rumoured 18-month clause that the Glazers have with Sir Jim come into effect here, says Rohill? Basically, in August, the Glazers can basically sell the club and there's nothing Sir Jim can do about it. That was last August, wasn't it? Just gone. Unless the Glazers and Jim are gone, this is pointless, says Ralph. Hi, Mark. Just documents need to be filed with the New York Stock Exchange stating that a potential sale is in the works. Aren't you Man United a partially listed club? All this stuff is relevant, Ryle. Slazy said, Sir Jim sold us on a lie. I wanted Sir Jim over Saudi due to human rights stuff and he promised glory. But if this can release us from the Glazers, let's do it, says Slazy. Sounds like you heard it down the pub, says Robert McCormack. Sorry, Mark, but this is clearly bullshit. No way they're selling, says Goldio. The news seems rubbish. United ain't up for sale. And if it happens, I'll admit to being wrong, but we know it's rubbish, says Jared. Morning, Mark. If Saudi seal a deal for Man United ownership, do you think Amrin will stay? I would give him a clean slate, but not for the players. And John United said, that was from Francesco. And John United says there has to be a change of ownership. I don't want someone coming in with investment to save them. I don't trust our owners to use it properly. Look, I think we're just going to have to, in the fullness of time, understand what this is all about. We've all been here before. We're all probably expecting it to be a big misunderstanding and a load of crap, and we get our hopes up again for nothing. It could be some sort of investment coming in. It could be a full sale. Personally, I'm a little bit like a few of you. It's intriguing because of who's saying it. You can't deny his credibility. You can't deny his influence. You can't deny the fact that it would be strange just to sit there on your phone and make it up. But we have been down this road so many times before, and we never seem to remove the Glazers. So I'll await to see what comes of this in the next coming hours and days. And I'm sure by 2 o'clock, Ben Jacobs will have a thorough debrief on what this was all about. But Man United are broke. Man United couldn't afford a midfielder in the summer. Man United are £800 million in debt. Man United don't look like they're going to be in the Champions League. These things that I said last night, that people, I lost count of last night how many times I said, Amrim saying he wants to give Amrim 3 years isn't really my concern. So Jim saying he wants to give Amrim 3 years isn't really what I want to talk about. What I was talking about last night is the way I look at football and the way it's just moving so fast and we're moving so slow. And listening to Sir Jim Ratcliffe's interview, it's all about slowly. And that irritates me because I think we've been moving too slow for 10 years. We need to be moving quick. If Chelsea are moving quick, we need to move quicker. If Liverpool and Arsenal are moving quick, we need to move quicker. If somebody's further ahead of you, you've got to move quicker than them to catch them. I don't know what it is about that people don't understand. My opinion is we're moving too slow compared to our competitors. It's that simple. And I've got people going, well, you've been asking for an owner to back the manager for years and now he's doing it. What's your problem? And I'm like, you didn't watch the show, did you? You really focused in on the fact that you think I said he shouldn't be giving Amrim 3 years. At no point did I say that. What I said throughout the whole show was, I don't like this ownership. I don't trust this ownership. And we're moving too slow compared to our competitors. And in a running race, if you're far behind and you're not running as quick as the people in front, the gap gets bigger. I need to see urgency. I need to see speed. And I don't see that from anything Sir Jim Ratcliffe has ever said. It's always cuts, time, progress will come. And we haven't seen the progress yet. So I don't trust a lot of what they say. And that is why I would jump into the pool of changing the ownership now, if I could, because I need to see that speed. I need to see that intensity. So when I, if I try and sell the story that we maybe are going to get investment or we are going to get a new owner, well, I'd look at things like 15th in the league, 10th in the league, not in Europe, massive debt, can't afford a midfielder. These things are factual. So how do they jump those very defined barriers? We're not in Europe. Will we be in Europe next season? Flip a coin. I don't know. Yes, no, don't know. Why didn't we buy a midfielder in the summer? Because we couldn't afford it. I genuinely don't think we said we don't need one, because we spoke to Conor Gallagher, we spoke to Belabor. We couldn't afford it. We couldn't afford something that's absolutely important. Yeah, we did well. We got Cunha, we got Sesko, we got Mbeumo. We did get a goalkeeper right at the end, but we didn't buy a midfielder because we couldn't afford it. It wasn't because we didn't want one. Remember, they tried to put that out a few weeks ago that Wilcox and Barada decided we didn't need a midfielder. I think the Manchester Evening News ran it. It got buried and forgotten very quickly because no fan was like, oh, they know what they're on about. We did want a midfielder. We couldn't afford it. So making the case for investment or sale isn't difficult. They need a massive amount of money to build a new Old Trafford. They need a massive amount of money to invest in the squad. The squad's not good enough to get in Europe in some people's eyes. So look, we're primed for a sale if we haven't got the money. Absolutely. But the flip side of that coin is I do think the Glazer/Ineos strategy is to be slow in the rebuild. We've sacked half the workforce. We'll get a midfielder next year. We'll hope we can get in Europe, and these things will gradually take us back. I think their plan is to continue down this slow road. I don't think their plan is to go for investment, but you could make a case for it. Of course you could. We want a full sale, says King Walker. Yeah, look. Also, I think if I was going to apologise for one thing last night, I got a very good message from somebody, and I completely agree about it. I'll make eye contact. If there's something I need to apologise for last night, I don't apologise. By the way, I don't apologise what I said about Sir Jim Ratcliffe or Ineos or the Glazers. I don't apologise about that. You know me. Very, very consistent. I have been very, very consistent from day one that I do not like this ownership. I'm consistent. I don't like it. People can say you're a moaner. People can say you're not giving Sir Jim the benefit of the doubt. People can say, whatever they like. But I've been consistent for the last 3 years. I never wanted Ineos to get into bed with the Glazers. I never wanted Sir Jim Ratcliffe to be working with the Glazers. I wanted a full sale. I wanted the debt gone. I wanted a reset. So when Sir Jim Ratcliffe does an interview, don't expect me to go, oh, actually, I like that. I'm not, I don't flip-flop on that. I understand the criticism. You don't have to agree with me, but you can never accuse me of flip-flopping on this ownership. I don't like it. So I don't like it. So when I hear people I don't like because of what they've done to my football club talk about their plans, I don't like them. I don't trust them. I don't believe them, and I don't think they're going to do what they say they're going to do. It's not being negative. I have plenty of reason not to like this ownership, so I don't like it. It's as simple as that. So an interview with Sir Jim Ratcliffe isn't going to change it. And what I find funny is that a week ago, people were demanding that Amrin get sacked because we'd lost to Brentford. A week later, we beat Sunderland at home. Sir Jim Ratcliffe does an interview, and now if you say anything negative about the club or the manager, you're the problem. And yet a week ago, if that interview had come out, everyone would have ripped the piss out of it. The thing about me is I'm consistent. I don't like the ownership. I don't like it. I don't trust it. And the minute they start proving me wrong, I'll be right at the front going, I got that wrong. But I don't like the ownership. But where I do need to sort of acknowledge something is that Sir Jim Ratcliffe doesn't own the football club. And I keep falling into this trap. He doesn't own the football club. He owns 27%. He's a puppet. He's a puppet to the Glazers. And I keep forgetting it. Because the Glazers don't talk, I keep thinking he owns the football club because he talks like he does, but he doesn't. The regeneration project is not his project. He came into the club in 2023. This was being spoken about 7 years ago. So it's not his project. He doesn't own the football club. The Glazers do. And I think that's the only thing I would say. My frustration at Sir Jim Ratcliffe is probably a little bit unfair. He's just a glorified CEO. He's just a glorified employee. He doesn't own the football club. The Glazers do. And if they want to sell it, they can sell it, and he can't stop them selling it. And if they want to keep it, they can keep it, and he can't stop them. And I think it's almost like needs to be a poster behind the wall. So Jim doesn't own the football club, because I fall into the trap all the time. And I don't think I mentioned that enough on the show last night when I was going on about we're moving too slow. We're so far behind our rivals, because it is the Glazers who own the football club. And, you know, when I think about sales or investments, we know they don't want to relinquish that ownership at all. So, you know, I think that's something to acknowledge and remember. Let me just grab some of your comments, then we'll go through some of that. Can you do a Sir Jim Ratcliffe impression, says that man Savage. You said you want the owner to publicly back Ruben. Now that's an issue. Can people not want Linios out? And if they have to stay, keep Ruben. Yeah, Ben, thank you very much for your super chat, but you didn't listen to anything that I said, did you, in the last 5 minutes or last night? I can't answer this question that people keep asking me because they don't listen to the show. If you watched the show last night, people were getting bored of me saying, it's not the backing of the manager that's my problem with what Sir Jim Ratcliffe has said. My problem with what Sir Jim Ratcliffe has said is 5 years for money to come in from the stadium, 3-year projects, light switches. Look at what happened with Sir Alex. And I explained this about 10 times because I knew people like you weren't going to listen, and you're still not listening. People in the comments last night didn't watch the show. They're going, you've said you've wanted an owner to back the manager for years. Now they're doing it and you're criticising it. I didn't criticise it at all. Didn't criticise it at all. I said, in relation to backing the manager, it's irrelevant. I actually quite like the fact that we're not going to sack a manager. I said it right at the bloody start. My problem is I don't trust this ownership to do the backing, to do what needs to be done quick enough. Everything is slow. That was my whole point. And I get people going, well, you've said you want a manager to be backed by the owner. But I don't think they are backing the manager because they didn't get him a midfielder. They didn't get him a right wing back. So, you know, two things can be right and two things can be wrong. I don't mind Amrin being backed. I actually tweeted it last night after the show. It's the one positive from that interview is that Ruben Amrim's going to be the manager till the summer, guaranteed. Now, Amrim outers aren't going to like this, but they cannot sack Ruben Amrim before May, because if they sack Amrim before May, that interview becomes Exhibit A in you're a big fucking liar. He cannot sack Amrim now because he's just done an interview saying, at the end of the day, you know, it's not a light switch. And Sir Alex Ferguson needed 2 years, you know, and you know, it's not a light switch, and we want to give him 3 years. So if you're Amrim out, I'd abandon it because it's not going to happen this season. It can't happen this season. I literally said 2 weeks ago, if I could press a button, I'd give Amrim the season. Obviously, if results go really bad, that's not going to be very good. But I do think that giving a manager a season instead of going for another interim or trying to do something in the season is just stupid. So I think that's a positive. My major issue is not Amrim, not him getting the season. I think that's a secondary issue, and results will dictate how that conversation goes. My biggest issue is the ownership. It's slow. It doesn't seem to know what it's doing. The club seems to be getting worse and worse instead of better. That's my issue. And I don't trust this ownership. I'm sorry, Ben. I just don't trust it. I don't like it. I never wanted it. And you can't change my mind on that. And why should I change my mind? We do shows every bloody day for years, and all through the sale process, I never wanted Sir Jim Ratcliffe. I never wanted anybody to get into bed with Ineos. So I'm not going to sit there when a guy I didn't want does interviews and go, I love it. I absolutely love it. I want to get proved wrong. Oh, I want to get proved wrong. 100% I want to get proved wrong. But I don't back them. I didn't want them, and I don't support them. In your country, you might have a party that gets voted in democratically that you don't support. You know, you might be in the UK and you might be, you know, Liberal Democrat or Green Party, and you hate Labour. Tough. They've been voted in. They are the government for the next few years. Doesn't mean you've got to walk around with a red flag going, I love Labour. You know, I don't like this ownership. I love my country. I love Man United, but I don't like this ownership, and I don't have to, and you can't make me, and I don't trust them, and I don't like them, and they can prove me wrong by results and taking Man United back to the top, but I don't like them, and I don't have to. Simple as that. Just the same as you don't have to like this community and watch. Freedom of speech. Morning, Mark. If Saudi seal a deal for Man United ownership, do you think Amrin will stay? I've done that one before. I think we're getting into very exciting territory about something that probably won't happen. So I'm not going to talk about managers, players, or new ownership because I think that's a very big step forward. Alfie says, have you forgotten that Ineos have first refusal on any further sales of shares built into the acquisition? Total and utter nonsense, says Alfie. No, but Alfie, right? Look, I'll deal with the questions pragmatically. What you're saying is that the Glazers can sell the club whenever they want and Sir Jim can't stop it. But the Sir Jim has first refusal. So if, let's say, the Saudis say, we'll give you 10 billion for the club, and the Glazers say, yes, please, they then go to Sir Jim and say, we've got a sale for the club for 10 billion. If you don't give us 10 billion, we're selling it. Sir Jim ain't going to give us 10 billion. We become a Saudi-owned club. First refusal is that, look at it like this. Man United sell Mainu to Brighton, but we've got first refusal when Brighton sell him. Real Madrid come in and say, we'll give you 100 million for Mainu. Brighton ring Man United up and say, we've had an offer of 100 million. If you match it, he's your player. Man United go, forget about it. So that's what that is, Alfie. Yes, Sir Jim's got first refusal, but what you're basically saying is the guy that won't put his own money into the club is suddenly going to overpay for the club if somebody offers us good money for it. Great. If Sir Jim wants to buy the whole fucking club because he's got the money to do it, great. But he hasn't shown any evidence of wanting to do that yet, has he? I would take Sir Jim Ratcliffe owning the whole club over the Glazers. My problem with Sir Jim is that he rescued the Glazers. That was what made him an enemy of the club in my mind. If he wants to buy the whole fucking club, let's move, you know? In property investment, if you add planning and permissions to build something bigger and plans are accepted, you can ask for a high valuation on the sale without actually building anything. This seems like what happens, says Trim Tim. Morning, Mark. We've done that one. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. Okay, a few other bits to go into as well this morning. Oh, just to answer a question from last night, I was reading the comments. Somebody said, a few people were saying in the comments last night that they felt that Sir Jim Ratcliffe's statement was the end of player power, because it basically was saying that, you know, the manager's going to be here for a long time. So if players think they can sack the manager, you've got another thing coming. A few people ran on that theme, and I thought I'd wanted to just bring it into the show this morning because we didn't have time last night. So there's a few of you last night who felt that Sir Jim Ratcliffe's comments about the manager getting 3 years or a long time basically is a strong message to the players that you can't down tools anymore because the manager's going to survive longer than you. You know, if you interpret it like that, that's great. What I would say about that is that a manager is always going to be easier to sack than a player that's got 3, 4, 5 year contracts. So, you know, even if Amrin was here for 3 years, there's probably people with contracts that have got longer contracts than that. So I don't know that it was a message to player power. I suppose the ultimate mic drop on that would be, you know, people talk about player power and, you know, player power running the club. As far as we know, Ruben Amrin picks Bruno Fernandes in the midfield. Ruben Amrin puts Luke Shaw at left centre-back. Ruben Amrin picked Harry Maguire as the centre-back against Brentford. Ruben Amrin put Delot at left wing-back. So, you know, we talk about player power, but Ruben Amrin picks those players. Ruben Amrin was picking Binder in goal. So I think sometimes people get confused about what player power actually is. There may well be player power issues at Manchester United. I suspect there probably are, but they're not picking the team. Not picking, you know, most of you are screaming and shouting it should be Mainu in the midfield, not Bruno. But Amrin picks Bruno. Amrin puts the captain's armband on his arm. Amrin puts Luke Shaw in the team. Amrin drops Dorgu sometimes to play Delot at left wing back. So, you know, player power is not picking the team. I think that to interpret Sir Jim Ratcliffe's comments about backing the manager for 3 years being the end of player power, but that manager picks those players in positions that you don't like. Like, there's a shared responsibility is what I'm trying to say. And also, I think Paul Scholes is correct as well. You go to Liverpool and lose, and we'll be back where we were after Brentford. I think that we're in that phase at Man United at the moment. And the perfect example of this is, I hate to use the word flip-flop, but I know many of you do. I just think the fan base is in a eternal state of change. You lose a game and everything's absolutely horrendous. You win a game, and if you say anything constructive or negative, you're the problem. And there is never any middle ground. Like literally last week after Brentford, the world was going to end. We beat Sunderland at home and everything's fine. So Jim's a good owner. And it's like, not everybody thinks that, but some people do. And I think that what we're crying out for really is just a bit of bloody stability, which is very, 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 very difficult to find, isn't it? Unfortunately, I mean, look, the prime example of this is a protest is planned for the opening game of the season at Old Trafford against Arsenal, which would have been massively impactful because it's the opening game of the season. Sky are there. It's in front of everybody. It's going to be a massively watched game. There could have been a protest before it, and it would have been a big statement at the start of the season that the owner, the fans don't like the owners. The 58 arranged that, and then there is an absolute backlash from the fan base and some content creators going, it's embarrassing, don't do it. And why did they do that? Because they thought we were buying Belabor. We don't buy a midfielder. The protests get cancelled because people told them to, and the season just starts. And you sort of like go, if we'd not done that Belabor deal, everyone would have said, do the protest. But because that particular week we were in for Belabor, people were like, don't do the protest. Give him a chance. Give him a chance. Then you give him a chance and you don't get a midfielder. And this is what I mean. It's like the opinion in the fan base changes on a light switch. Like last night, everybody's like backing Sir Jim. Oh, good old, yeah, this is what we want. This is the ownership we want. This morning, yeah, get Sir Jim out. We want a new owner. And it's like, it's hard to understand what people want. And, obviously people do change their opinions. That's absolutely fine. But to give you a hint as to how I feel, I just don't like this ownership. I don't like it. I don't trust it. I don't like the things they've done. I don't understand some of the stuff they've done. And I don't like it. And you'll get somebody wise, smart aleck who come in and go, that's because you're just a YouTuber and they're successful businessmen. Let's take me out the equation. I'd trust every single one of you 15,000 people to run this club better than the Glazers, and they're successful billionaires. So just because someone's a billionaire doesn't mean they know anything about football, in my opinion. I just want a full sale and an ownership that wants to take Man United back to the top, because ultimately I want football to be quite simple. I've lived simpler times where there's a manager I like, there's a team I like, and there's a club I love. And every weekend you watch them, you trust them, and you enjoy it. And I'll tell you what, between 1990 and 2012, I very rarely gave a shit about sharehold prices, stadium builds, debt. It just wasn't in my vocabulary. And United were ridiculously successful between those 22 years. And I never, ever went down the pub or spoke with my mates about things like share prices or anything like that. I spoke about the team. I spoke about, are we going to win the league? Are we going to win the Champions League? And it's amazing how we've been shit for 10 years. And here we are talking about sales again, because we're so locked into, we have an owner that sits there and talks about, job cuts. We have a CEO that talks about, brand deals, and it's sad. I just want us to be a good football club. And I don't think it's that difficult. I think it's actually quite simple, but because they run us like a business, it ends up like this. So Jim Masterclass buys 25%, gets to go ahead for a new stadium, then sells for double to the Saudis, says DP. Well, I tell you what, DP, lovely name. I tell you what I would say about that is that sounds massively insulting, that Sir Jim Ratcliffe would buy the club. What was 25%? What did he pay for 25%? 1.5 billion. And then 2 years later, he sells it for 3 billion. I mean, he probably wouldn't get 3 billion. He might get 2 billion. Still $500 million profit in 2 years. I mean, there's no bank account that's going to give you that. But I suppose it comes down to what you think is Sir Jim Radcliffe's motives. Like, is he a lifelong Man United fan obsessed with making us win? Or is he a businessman who, sees it as, massively, enticing to own a football club that you support and make some money out of it? I mean, he tried to buy Chelsea. The guy tried to buy Chelsea. He tried to buy half of Barcelona. So maybe that is it. I don't think player power is the issue anymore. Which player is in the squad that Ruben Amorim doesn't want? Rashford, Sancho, Onana, Garnacho, Anthony, all gone as he wanted his class of 99. Maybe it's just investment in socks for the youth, says John. Yeah, it's Sports Direct. Sports Direct are going to supply us with some socks. We're not being taken over. How do we go from Sir Jim talking about 3-year plans and the next day new ownership potential? As fans, we live on the edge, don't know what to think. I think this is a great point by Nick. I went to bed last night quite depressed about Man United because I was like, and I know I'm in the minority, but it's my opinion. Didn't really care about whether Amorim's here for 3 months or 3 years. Quite like the idea that we're going to stick with a manager because, I've said for a long time, let's walk down the path less trodden. But I looked beyond that statement from Sir Jim Radcliffe, and he is a puppet to the Glazers. I need to keep remembering this. He's just a puppet. He's just the guy who says stuff they want him to. I just saw 3-5-year plans again from the Glazers, and I've heard this from Woodward, I've heard it from Arnold, I've heard it from Joel Glazer. These 3 to 5 year plans that we're 10 years into that haven't happened, and I just think like everybody else is moving so fast and we're moving so slow. So I went to bed quite fed up, thinking I'm going to get proved right on this. I don't want to get proved right, but I'm going to get proved right. All these people who are trying to be positive about this interview, I guarantee in the next 3, 6, 9 months, they'll be going, he's a liar, he's a load of bullshit, because that's what happens all the time. It's like the treadmill, isn't it? The cycle continues. Then you wake up this morning and you go, well, what's this load of crap? And then you do a little bit of research and you go, why would he lie? And you go, maybe, just maybe there's hope. Maybe there is some hope. And then you go, why are you doing that again? Why are you giving yourself hope? Because I want to believe that Man United can get back to the top. And I think the only way of doing that is with the right ownership. So it is amazing, Nick. You can go to bed like really, fed up about the way the club's heading. And then you can wake up the next day and be going, oh my God. I really wish we could get the change of ownership, but you know what? I'm going to be right at the front of the queue saying it's a load of bollocks, I'm afraid. Thank you very much to that for Nick P. I told you, One Inch Wonder says, I told you I'd make it happen since I moved to Saudi. You're welcome. Well, let's hope something does happen because that would be great. Right, let me just catch up on a few other little bits here from this morning that I haven't discussed because I feel like we've spoken about that a lot. Here we go. There we go. Why am I so slow? I'm not used to being back in here. This is the bloody summer transfer window in here. Oh yeah, okay. I mean, look, it's in the sun. So, but Man United defender Harry Maguire is hoping to sign a new contract with his current deal at the club set to expire at the end of the season. United's director of football negotiations, Matt Hargreaves, has held initial talks with the England international's representatives. His current salary has already been reduced by 25% since United are not in Europe. So he's already on around 140k a week, and United are looking to negotiate. Look, you're never going to catch me slagging off Harry Maguire anymore to the extent I used to, because I think his bounce back ability, his dedication to the cause cannot be questioned. But we should not be renewing the contracts of a player that's not a first team player and isn't good enough anymore. Like, even 100 grand a week is too much money for a player that's not a first team starter in a team that's not in Europe. So I think we've got an opportunity to move him on, and we should do that. And I also think Harry Maguire's at an age where he should just be prioritising playing first team football over sitting on the bench at Man United being a dressing room cheerleader. So I think that he should be moved on, really, but not because I dislike him or anything like that. Just because I think surely we are a football club that needs to, save money and utilise it elsewhere. So I would move him on, to be honest with you. But I think this whole leadership group thing is becoming a little bit of a problem. What's Harry Maguire a leader in? Like, I know he's well respected in the club and I know he's well liked, but what's he actually won? A Carabao Cup, an FA Cup? What's his experience to pass on? It's a sad state of affairs that we need to keep players in the team, in the squad, who are leaders, who haven't won anything. He's not Johnny Evans. Johnny Evans has won Premier League titles. So I personally, I like Harry Maguire, but I think it's it's time to move on. Time to move on. Secondly, a little bit coming out about Martinez, Lisandro Martinez, over the last couple of days. The Mail is saying that Martinez has often cut a frustrated figure with his determination to return to the first team during another difficult period for the manager. However, the club want to ensure he comes back fully prepared for a busy part of the season. I spoke about this before because we do get bits of information coming in from the training ground, and I think I spoke about it on Monday about Martinez. He is not going to be back against Liverpool. He's not done any combat training. What do they call it? There's a word for it. Someone will know it. It's he's done ball work. He's done individual work. He's not done like contact training. He's not done any contact training. So, passing drills, tackling, things like that. He's not done any of that. So that's the next stage for him. So I don't think Martinez is back until December, in my opinion. Maybe late November, but I don't think he's going to be back till December because it's a long injury. It's a bad injury. He's got to get match fitness. He's got to get match sharpness. He's got to deal with tackling again. There may well be a little bit of period of rehabilitation after a week of that. So I don't see him back before the next international break, which is only 4 games before the next international break. So I think Martinez, sometimes people want to, profess that he's going to be back sooner than he is. There was talk in the summer of him being back for September. We were always told that was ridiculously optimistic. He did go on the tour and he has been doing like conditioning work for quite a while, but it's a significant injury. And the concern with Martinez is that, we've said it before as well, when you have significant injuries, there are normally secondary injuries as well, especially on your knee, because if you've not been using your left knee for a long time, your right knee gets overcompensated. Then when your left knee starts being worked, your right knee is not needed as much, and then it can pick up injuries as well, muscle injuries, etc. So the club have got to be very, 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 very wary of that. I mean, I'd love Martinez back, of course, love him back, but it's not that easy. This was Jamie Carragher. I don't like saying a manager should be sacked. It's disrespectful and it's a man's job. But I'm at the point where I do think Amrim's job is untenable. It's inevitable that it's going to happen before Christmas. Paul Scholes was on the same video with him and agreed with that. I disagree with that now. I disagree with that now. I think that, as I said a few minutes ago, the one positive I would take from Amrim's interview, from Sir Jim's interview, is that if he sacks Ruben Amorim before Christmas or before the end of the season, he's a massive liar. I don't expect him to give him 3 years if the results aren't good enough, but I do expect him to give him the season now. I don't think you can sit there and talk about Sir Alex Ferguson's bad start, Arteta's bad start, 3 years, it's not a light switch. I don't think we can talk about those sort of things and then sack him before Christmas, because as an owner, you look completely incompetent. If there's a chance you're going to sack him before Christmas, keep your mouth shut. He's chosen to speak, and I think that he has to give him the season now. I see that as a positive. I don't think it's a positive if we lose our next 4 games, but I think it's a positive to not sack a manager in season and, go to another interim and continue with the cycle. I think at some point you've got to stick with a manager and just go, let's see if it gets better. I mean, it might get worse. Of course, it might get worse. The win ratio is not very good. Some of his decision making is horrific. But maybe if you stick with it, eventually it does start to get better. And I think that's what they're saying they're going to do for this season. I don't listen to the 3-year stuff because 3 years is terrifyingly long if it gets bad. But I do think give him the season. I also think give him a midfielder in January. Yeah, I definitely do think that. So let's wait and see what happens. But I mean, obviously, that's not going to be what Amrim Outers want to hear. And the pressure's not going to go. The funny thing is, as well, I read a lot of people on the comments last night saying, this is just Sir Jim Radcliffe shutting the media down. And I think, oh, my God, how naive are we? Tell the media not to talk about something and they're not going to go, oh, let's stop talking about it. They're still going to do it. It'll make them more determined. Some journalists who don't like Amrim will be like, I'm not listening to Sir Jim Radcliffe. It's going to make me double my efforts, Owners say 3 years backing Amrim, saying we're living game to game, just shows how easily the owners can manipulate the mass. We need an owner that can buy 100%, says Seth. And Daniel Sturtridge says, I don't understand how people get too high about a probable load of bollocks. Don't excuse what the ownership has done. Managers aren't always to blame. Don't Saudis own Newcastle? Can they also own United, says Chris. Look, the 2 o'clock show with Ben Jacobs will be brilliant. I'm sure other stuff's going to come out before then, but Ben's always very tapped in on this sort of stuff. So I'm looking forward to the 2 o'clock show anyway. But you're right. The Saudis do own Newcastle, and Turki Al-Sheikh is massively involved with the Saudis. But the way he's talking, it might not be Saudi investment. It might be a bloody flip it round. It might be another investment group from America who don't want anything to do with the club and wants Jim Ratcliffe to do it. What if it's like an investment group from a faceless investment group from America who are willing to pump some money in as well and let Sir Jim run it? So, we might just dilute shares again. I don't know. There might be something in it. Let's wait and see. Okay, I'm going to do a little bit of a reveal of the Christmas jumper. Not all of it. This is the best Christmas jumper we've ever done. It's not for sale yet, but I'm just going to give you a little look at the arm. There we go. It's lovely. It's absolutely lovely. I can't wait to get it on. And we'll let you know when it launches. You can get them worldwide as well. But there will be a limited run as always. So yeah, let me go. If Amrin starts to get wins, would you pragmatically back him? I already back him. I don't know why people look. I hope the club's going to get sold. I don't like the ownership. I'm not going to like the ownership until the club gets better. I never wanted this ownership and I don't like it. That's my stance. When Sir Jim Ratcliffe talks, I see problems because I don't trust him. He's basically a Glazer puppet. To understand my point of view, you have to realise I see Sir Jim Ratcliffe as a puppet to the Glazers and I don't like the Glazers. That's my stance. So when he does an interview, I just think PR, Glazer puppet, bullshit, lies, nonsense, crap. I heard this for 10 years. I don't believe any of it. I don't like it. That's my stance. It's as simple as that. With regards to Amrin, it's a very separate conversation. I don't want the manager to be sacked. I want him to do well. I like Ruben Amrin. I don't like some of his team selections, and I'll be critical of those, but I've never said Amrim out, and I'm not Amrim out. I want him to do well. So don't let people try and put thoughts into your head, because if I'm a manager out, like I was with Van Gaal, I'll tell you and I'll say it. And I don't care what people think, because I'm more than happy to put my opinion out there, as I did last night, even though I know it was a minority view. I stand by it. I'm not changing it. So I'm sure some of you love it when I say things that you agree with. But as I've said for 10 years, the United Stand is a place for everybody to have an opinion, and you're not meant to agree with mine. And I think sometimes people forget that and they start moaning, going, oh, I didn't like the show because Mark said something I don't like. Well, that's music to my ears, because you're meant to have your own opinions. That's the way it's meant to work. I can't wait for the 2 o'clock show. Ben Jacobs on 2 o'clock. I'll be watching. I'll be in the chat. Looking forward to that. And let's see what's behind this, if anything. Thanks for watching. Take care. Speak to you all in a bit.